It's simple, really. First
Abed, what did I tell you? You can't just mumble nonsense. No one's cutting away.
Okay, fine.
I first got interested in editing about 5 years ago. I was watching Die Hard on DVD, which is a kind of disc that you watch movies on, and sometimes it has other content on, like behind the scenes or extra features. And one of those features for Die Hard was you could re-edit the scene where Hans Gruber and John McClane first met. It's such a tense and nuanced scene, watching them trying to outthink each other and trying to see if they could uncover the other or manipulate them. And on the DVD, you could cut to different cameras at certain parts of the scene. And it's an incredibly iconic scene, and it was really, really amazing to me. Easily it could be ruined with me recutting it. So rarely in creativity do you get to see what somebody else would do with the same resources. You never see the same film being directed by two different directors. You never see a music video being cut with the same footage by two different editors. But those rare occasions are so important in understanding the craft, understanding the craft people behind it. And for people who aren't in the industry, it's really important for them to see what makes somebody good at what they do. Enter Community. And I'm probably the last person on earth who enjoys comedy but hadn't seen Community. But I've finished it now. I had followed a train of being obsessed with Rick and Morty, being obsessed with Justin Roiland, being obsessed with Dan Harmon, obsessed with his podcast, Harmontown, and then finally watching the show he's arguably most famous for. I've just finished watching season 6. It's such a great show. Season 3 is easily my favourite, especially the video game episode. I think Community does some really, really clever concepts and does really brave things no other show does. Community is incredibly dense and smart and self-aware and brave comedy that knows what it's talking about, how funny it is, and what it wants to say. The sense of humour is smart and it's subtle. I can't think of a single cheap joke or sitcom trope that it at least didn't pull off.
True! All life ends in death, which we, as a species, are cursed with knowing, resulting in something. Again, this is really not my field.
Comedy is completely subjective, but for me it was the antidote to just the kind of generic silliness like Big Bang Theory and How I Met Your Mother. And it proved that you can make comedy without exploiting stereotypes and exploiting your characters too. Community has a really, really interesting story. Being loved by fans and critics but never finding a mainstream audience isn't exactly a unique plight, but it went through a ton of production issues. Quite famously, Chevy Chase had a big problem with production, and because of the long delays, long shooting days, kind of a direction disagreement, and continually late scripts, refused to shoot the last tag for season 3. And Dan and Chevy had a big bust up about it. And this is what happened. Chevy Chase refused to do the tag for the digital estate planning episode, the 8-bit video game episode. In the scripted tag, Arbid comes to Pierce with the thumb drive he took and says, "Pierce, I've been able to adjust some of the code for your dad's video game, and I've made a version I think you might like better." He puts the thumb drive in front of Pierce. We cut to the laptop screen where we see Pierce's avatar on a front lawn with a giant floating head of Cornelius. Every time Pierce presses the spacebar, his avatar throws a baseball to his father's head, which gives him 1,000 points and a "great job, son." Pierce presses the spacebar a few times, pauses, then leans over and embraces Arbid. We fade to black. When Adam County pitched that tag, tears instantly rolled down my cheeks. And in point of fact, my eyes are getting watery describing it to you. It was the most important part of the episode, and possibly the most important moments of the season. I was very upset to hear it wasn't shot because someone didn't feel like shooting it, especially since it was literally the last day of shooting, which meant we'd never be able to pick it up. I regret nothing about how upset I got. My job was to care about my show. Dan Harmon was also notoriously difficult to work with, always delivering scripts late and constantly clashing heads with the studio execs. He ended up being fired after season 3. He did end up coming back for season 5 and 6, but what we got was season 4. We ended up seeing what it was like to have Community without Dan Harmon. Season 4 is awful for two main reasons. Reason number 1 was because of how good the other seasons were. Imagine having a knob on a focusing laser that keeps turning as we go through each episode in each season, and the beam's getting sharper and sharper, and the comedy is getting more focused and more intense as we go along the season. Season 4 felt like they were turning a knob on a laser that wasn't pointing at the same thing, wasn't even the same room, wasn't getting more focused, and it wasn't even the right colour. It lacked the finesse and deftness and the intensity of the previous seasons. Each episode's premise could have been given to any number of currently running sitcoms and it wouldn't feel out of place. It felt diluted. It felt like somebody had put these characters through Google Translate 100 times and just kind of stuck what came out onto a clipboard. And reason number 2 It took the characters in a whole completely new direction that didn't make any sense. I understand if you're writing now on a show, you want to own it and you want to make it your own. But it wasn't right for this show. It's not okay changing characters' complete motivation. It turned Chang from a really genuinely funny B character in this kind of weird caricature of his former hilarity. Every character felt like they had lost their complexity that Dan had developed over the last 3 seasons. And instead we're just firing trope lines from a revolver at the hip. Nothing about that season felt genuine or practiced, or that the character even knew why they were doing these things. Gone was the sense of fun and smartness, replaced with hokey, childish mania. But this is important to understand why Dan is as revered as he is. At season 4, that there was magic going on behind those doors.
And most importantly, while he's fighting for greed, we're fighting for friendship, which means we can't lose, okay?
Okay.
Okay! I guess there's no hug button.
We don't get to see what the writers' rooms were like, but we kind of understand now, after having had season 4, that there was magic going on behind those doors. It puts into perspective what genius looks like compared to a perfectly competent writer, what greatness looks like compared to mediocrity, what good comedy in my eyes looks like compared to bad, and why. I think as creators, we always want to feel like we're adding to the project, like it's a net positive. We always want to feel like we're making the right choices for the project. We want to be Dan Harmon in season 3. But sometimes, for a multitude of reasons, that can't happen. Not enough of the right pieces are in the right place, whether it's because decisions others have made or because of mistakes you've made.
This is my reality. This is how I learned to be, and my being doesn't allow for Nicolas freaking Cage, okay? Oh, yeah! Oh, yeah! Oh! Oh! Oh, I'm a cat. I'm a sexy cat.
The most important thing is to make sure all your other seasons are in place. That you've kept up the intensity and the drive for everything else you've done. Whether it's other projects, the relationships you have, personal, professional, you need to make sure those are your season 3s too. Make sure you put in the time and the work for those other things, and you can step away and look back at that encounter and go, that was the right thing for that endeavor. If you've poured your heart and soul into every other project, you can happily look at the end result and be really happy with what you've got. Season 4 was really bad, but it didn't ruin it for anything else, because the other seasons were so strong. And if you're prepared for season 4 and you come away from that healthy, it puts into perspective all the other hard work you've put in, all the other hours and effort you've put into the other parts of the project, and you can be proud of that. You're John McClane, you've met your Hans Gruber, and you've discovered how much of a badass you were and still will continue to be. Thanks guys, a bit of a different video for you. I've just finished watching season 6 like an hour ago, and it kind of really resonated with me, with the kind of work that I do, but also I think the kind of work that a lot of people do and the effort and care that they give to the things they love, and kind of putting that in perspective. So it's really important for me to kind of write this video and put it out there, especially if you love comedy. If you love comedy, just please go watch Community. It's so funny. I think it's streaming in Netflix in the US, but I don't think it's available in the UK. I mean, you can buy it on Amazon. I'll leave a link down in the description down below. So that's it guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.